Hello again, everyone. This is Rob McCoy with Holganix. Today we are going to be going over our product Blue Sky 2100. So it should be a pretty quick webinar, and we'll pretty much get right into it. As you can see, I am your host. We don't need to spend much time on that, but I've been with Holganix for about 5 years, a little more than 5 years. And I've been in the green industry for over 20, owned a lawn care company, ran a lawn care company, and have a ton of experience working with a lot of different people in a lot of different industry segments, from golf to farmers to professional sports turf, landscapers, lawn care companies, you name it, I've had my hand in it. So hopefully, if you have any questions, I will be able to guide you in the right direction. Speaking of questions, if you do have a question as we're going along, just click on that chat box, type in the question. I'll make sure that I get all of them addressed before we finish the webinar today. So what we will be going over in a little bit more detail is an overview of the Blue Sky product, how to use the product, some of the case studies that we've seen from people using the product, and then obviously the question and answer session. This is actually a picture of Concord Country Club. It is right down the street from us. We call it our home course because it's the closest golf course that we have using our products to where we manufacture the products. And they use, in combination with Blue Sky, they also use Bio 800, and they use it for all their greens, tees, and fairways. And I can tell you, I played this course about 2 weeks ago, and it was in unbelievable condition. And when I go out and play there, I don't typically tell anybody that, what my affiliation is, and that, they're using our products. I kind of want to see what they think. And I was with one member and 2 guests at the country club, and without me asking any questions, they were raving about it and just how great a condition the whole course was in. And they've been using it for about 3 years now, and not only use it for their maintenance, but also have done some reconstruction projects, rebuilt, I believe, 3 greens, 2 tee boxes, and they just widened one of the fairways, the 18th fairway, all of which they're doing right in season because they can get such a quick heel in. So obviously the greens take more time, but for example, with the 18th fairway, that was just done probably about a month ago, and you wouldn't even be able to tell right now. Completely playable and in great shape. So what's actually in the Blue Sky? So we have slow release nitrogen, quick release nitrogen, nutrient enhancers, and microbe food. So to go in a little bit more detail, the nitrogen sources are a methylated urea, and trizone. They actually work in combination quite well just because of how quickly they will release the nitrogen and make it available within the soil for the plants. So obviously you have that urea for the quick hit right off the bat, and then you move into methylated urea and trizone to keep that extended use over time. Nutrient enhancers, there's brewer's yeast, molasses, yucca extract, and a variety of other things that are in there, which not only will help the nutrients get used more efficiently, but also help the soil microbes, because we have that focus with our Bio 800 product, and we believe that the healthier the soil, the healthier the plants. So if you use this as a standalone, that's great. You're going to be really happy with the result. If you use it with the Bio 800, it's going to be a noticeable difference. It won't be comparable to using another fertilizer, just because of the synergistic value of those 2 products together. Not that you have to do it that way. I know that, for example, Concord Country Club, that we were just talking about does not go out with that combination every time. They do not use the Bio 800 every time on the fairways. Sometimes they'll just go out with the Blue Sky on the fairways, just because they feel like that's all it needs at that time. So what type of situation is it ideal for? It would be very easy for me to just say that it's ideal all the time, but that's not really the case. It's a straight nitrogen fertilizer. There's no phosphorus, there's no potassium. But if you're looking for a green up and you're restricted by some of your circumstances, say the weather, you're dealing with hot weather conditions, this is a very subtle fertilizer. You know, it's not an aggressive fertilizer that needs to be suppressed with a chemical suppressant. So you can get away with using it in some of the warmer temperatures. But as you can see on the screen, it's ideal for lawn, for golf courses, for sports fields. Really, I would consider it more for high performance turf, because that's where I think you get the best bang for your buck. There are a lot of lawn care companies out there using it, but not as consistently as some of the sports turf, because they just need the regenerative qualities, so that you get that bounce back from the turf because of the wear and tear. And frankly, you know, when you look at just a golf course, you know, there's a lot of, I use the word torture all the time. You're kind of torturing the turf, and at the same time trying to bring it back. So in order to keep that balance, this is a great product to use for that, because it's so subtle, and still gets the performance out of it. We have people that use it for tree and shrub care as well. They just use a low dose, and you don't really measure it as far as how much N per 1,000 square feet, but they're using it very subtly, and they kind of use it just so that there's some nutrient in the liquid spray that they would do, but it's really more about the microbe food in that case, enhancing a Bio 800 use. So the directions are pretty simple. It's compatible for tank mixtures. As I mentioned before, it can be used as a standalone or complementing the Bio 800. Typical application rates usually are not over 1/4 pound of N per 1,000, but you can obviously tailor that however you'd like. We've seen people run it through irrigation systems at a really low rate on a more consistent basis. Desert Willow Golf Course in Las Vegas is in this picture, and they use it over the entire course, wall to wall. They also use Bio 800. They also use some of our granulars, but they obviously have some challenges with the type of soil that they're dealing with. And if you ask Steve, the superintendent there, he'll tell you it's not soil, that it's more like just rocks. And he's amazed at the results that they can get. They went from actually in the first 3 months of using the combination of Bio 800 and Blue Sky, they went from 1-inch roots on the greens to 5-inch roots on the greens. And this was already, these greens were already in pretty good shape. They were, you know, very well maintained, even with that shallow root system. But the soil profiles completely changed, and he credits that all to the Holganix products out there, literally in the worst conditions possible. So he's got it dialed in now, and they actually hold the PGA putting championships on this course. So those, you could imagine those greens not only have to be in good shape, but they have to be rolling very fast. Wilmington Blue Rocks are another example of a customer that we've had for a long time that uses the product. They recently just did a renovation of the entire field, which it pained me to see them tear up the old field, but it was actually because of leveling issues. So they had to bring in a substantial amount of soil and re-level the field, but they used it for the sod grow in there. it was a combination of different things. They used the granular, they used Blue Sky, and they used the Bio 800. But when it comes to their standard rate for their maintenance, they're only doing an 8-ounce rate, which is 1/8 of a pound of nitrogen, and they're only putting that down 6 to 7 times a year. So when you do the math, that's barely over a pound of nitrogen that they're putting down, and they're keeping that green all the time. It's right along Interstate 95. You can see it from Interstate 95. Actually, in the background of the picture, you can see the highway elevated past the outfield. And every time we drive by there, it's just amazing how green that place is with such a little amount of nitrogen. And it really shows you, if you pay attention to the soil microbes and give it the right amount of nutrient along with the right type of nutrient, you really don't need a lot of it. So obviously they have good maintenance practices. This isn't going to be like a residential home where you have no idea what the cutting heights are, that it's getting scalped in different spots, and is it really getting cut on time, things like that. This is irrigated, perfectly manicured, but they're able to push those results to the utmost extent with that little amount of nitrogen. It's pretty amazing. Another example is Furman University down in South Carolina. So when they were using this combination, they were actually able to reduce the fertilizer by 40%, which, even if you're spending more on a per thousand basis for your, or a per gallon basis for your fertilizer, when you're reducing the need for it by 40% and you're getting better results, your cost is obviously going to come down. There's not that dramatic of a difference in cost that wouldn't be still a huge savings. This combination also eliminated the need for fungicide applications when they were proactively doing fungicide applications, and because of the correction in the soil and the resiliency of the turf, they didn't feel that they had a need for it anymore. And it took them about 2 years to get to that point. Not that it was so much about the plants coming around and the soil coming around to be able to do that. It was more the belief in it. You start to see it, but it's scary to pull those fungicides out when you know that you're in a climate where you're going to need those fungicides because you're going to have such heavy disease pressure. But they scaled it back, and then realized right when they were late on an application that they had no signs of disease. So then they pulled the proactive fungicides and only do preventative on a very limited basis. Here's another country club in Florida. As you can see, they had some damage done. This will make anybody cringe that works at a golf course when you see this type of damage. The interesting thing on this is that they did not need to, this did not need to be resprigged. They were able to save all of this turf just by using Blue Sky as their nutrient source. Obviously, they had to do this correctly. I mean, this is a pretty heavy damage, and in most cases, this would be stripped, re-leveled, and new sprigs would be put down. But they didn't have the budget to do it that way, so they did the best they could, and they had Blue Sky on hand. They used it, and it turned out great. You couldn't even tell that there was any damage. Tomlinson Baumberger is a lawn care and landscape company in Pennsylvania that I've worked with in the past, and they have a hybrid organic program along with a standard synthetic program, and the Blue Sky is their #1 nitrogen source in that program because it's so subtle. They also obviously put it with Bio 800 to reduce that need even more. But what they noticed when they were starting to get into this more, and they started to increase their customer count on their hybrid organic program, was that those lawns were actually looking better than the ones with the synthetic. And they thought that there was going to be some type of sacrifice there, and that people were really just going to get that program because of the kind of their values behind it. But what turned out to happen was that this program outperformed the other program, and they were able to charge 30% more to their customers for this program versus the other one, and they weren't spending any more money on a per thousand basis. So they've eventually transitioned around to just offering that program. They still have the other one, but they're doing the same program for both of them. And it's been a huge success for them to be able to really take this approach where they're focusing on the soil, focusing on the proper nutrients, and able to get that green that lasts through the summer months. Because they're probably an hour from where we're at right now, and we're in 90-degree temperatures every day now. So it can get a little dicey when you're spraying a liquid fertilizer out there in that type of heat, but they have not had any issues. They've been thrilled with how predictable the color's been. That's actually a picture of one of the residents that they take care of. And that's a pretty standard color for what you're going to get with Blue Sky on a residential lawn. You have a nice dark green color. It stays consistent. It'll last 8 to 12 weeks after spray. So when you start to consider what the time frame is between applications, if you are doing applications, say 6 weeks apart, because that's a pretty standard time frame. If you're doing applications 6 weeks apart, you have a really nice overlap there of nutrients where you can reduce the rate and know that the previous application is still completely working in your favor as that new application goes down. And you have those different sources of nitrogen that are working in combination with each other so that you don't have any drop off. We've all seen the drop off. We try to use urea source, and it's great for that quick hit and getting some nitrogen into the soil. But 3 to 4 weeks later, you're scrambling because you need to get another application down because that lawn is going to start to lose its color quickly. You won't have that issue with fertilizer like this. So how do you purchase the product? We have quite a few different distributors, and we're always acquiring new distributors. But here's some of the main ones: Ewing Irrigation, Green Resource, Aquarius, Lakeside Sod Supply, Northeast Nurseries, and Heritage Landscape Supply. And the Heritage Group is the newest one out of this group of distributors. And they are still getting the product into different locations. But if you have one of them in your area, and that's the most convenient spot, it is in their system now. So if you say, hey, I'm looking for this fertilizer, they'll be able to get it in pretty quickly for you. And worst case scenario, you don't have a distributor near you, you can always get it directly from us. But for a lot of the different quantities that people are looking for, usually a distributor is the best bet because of the shipping costs sometimes with going direct. So we are going to go into the questions. I'm going to leave my information up there. Let's see what we got.